In this video, students will be able to solve simple equations that require them to find the square or cube root of a number. And here we see our question is, find the positive value of x that makes each equation true. Check your solution. So here's our simple equation for right now. X squared equals 256. So I'm looking for a value of x that when I multiply it by itself, I get 256. And before I even get to solving the equation, which is the key for today, whenever I see a number squared equals a number, I think of a picture. And the picture that I think of is a square. And I'll explain why in a second. I think of a square, my best square I can do, 256 square units, or an area of 256. And why do I think of a square in this picture? Because I'm using x, I'm looking for a side length, times that same side length, right? It has to be the same number because it's a square. In order to get, I multiply these in order to get 256. Or in other words, x times that same number x equals 256. And that should kind of ring a few bells because we've been talking a lot about what a square root does. So you can imagine when I do go to solve this equation, I'm going to use the square root of a number. Okay? And here's how I'm going to do that. First, I'm just going to bring down the equation. Okay? And my first step to solving this equation is something new in math. We call it take the square root of both sides. Remember, when we're solving equations, we have to do when we do one thing to one side, we have to do it to the other. So here we are going to take the square root of both sides of the equation. So on the left I had x squared, and on the right I had 256. And in order to solve this problem, we need to know which number times itself is 256. And if I look on my perfect squares list, I see, nope, the biggest value we have is 225. So I can turn it over and notice, well, let's see. Oh, right here. Here are my perfect squares shaded along the diagonal. And I see that 16 times 16 is 256. So the square root of 256 is 16, and the square root of a number squared is just the number, or x. Here's my answer, and now I'm going to quickly check my answer. Okay, so here's my check. I wanted a number times itself equals 256. I'm guessing, or I'm claiming that that number is 16. And if I try this in a calculator, I get 16 times 16 is 256. That, of course, equals 256, which means I was correct. Now in the next problem we're going to do, again, same goal. We'll be able to solve simple equations that require to find the square or cube root of a number. Same question. Find the positive value of x that makes each equation true. Check the solution. And I have somewhat of a new equation. I have a number times that number equals 343. And you might be thinking, well, let's take the square root. However, since I'm multiplying the same number 3 times, we're actually going to eventually find the cube root of this number. So when I see 3 numbers that need to multiply to be itself, I think of my three-dimensional shape, which is a cube that has a volume of 343. And I want to find that volume by multiplying its three side lengths. Okay, so I'm going to now go to solve the equation. Again, my first direction here is to write down my equation. And when you have an exponent of 3, we read that as x to the power of 3, or x cubed. And that should kind of signal you to say, well, square root, I take of a square number, I take the square root. When a number is cubed, I take the cube root. And it's a new type of symbol. Looks just like the square root symbol, only our index here is a 3. We put a little 3 up there, very small. And again, on the left side, I had x cubed. And on the right, I had 343. And then to solve this problem, I might have to do a little bit of guess and check. What number times itself is 343? And I could do a little bit of work, and I eventually will get my answer is 7. 7 times 7 times 7 is 343. So here's my answer, x equals 7. And to quickly check my answer, again, I wanted a number times itself is 343. My guess is that number is 7. And if I do that out, 7 times 7 times 7, let's see if I get what I want, 343. 7 times 7 is 49. And 49 times 7, let's see, in my head, 49 times 7 is 7 less than 50 times 7. 50 times 7 is 350, minus 7 is 343. And you can verify that on a calculator. But I've checked my work, my answer is correct. And I have now just shown you 2 examples of how to solve simple equations that require them to find the square or cube root of a number. Thanks for watching.